Hello you guys, and welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Social Studies. My name is Sarah, and today I'm going to walk you through my PERA binder. PERA stands for Performance Evaluation Reform Act, and it is how my district evaluates us. Today I will be working on assembling my PERA binder, at least deciding what kinds of things I'll put in the binder and talking you through that. I'll do the printing and all of that when I'm at school to get it set up, but I thought I could talk through the different parts of it in case that it can help you. Now it is just a relaxing Saturday here. I made myself a matcha latte, matcha green tea. It's very good. If you're someone who has a caffeine addiction and you're trying to cut out coffee, matcha is a much healthier alternative. It does have somewhat of a bitter flavor when you first start, so you may want to use some sort of sweetener when you're blending it up, but I find that it's really delicious and it's full of antioxidants. I think one small scoop's equivalent to the same antioxidants as like 5 serving vegetables. So yeah, I'm having some of this today, not for the energy, but just because it's yummy to me. But anyway, with today, I'm gonna show you the different parts of my binder and talk through the different domains and artifacts I'm using. Now I will say, I am so incredibly grateful for the awesome instructional coaches that my district has. There are 2 wonderful ladies. They taught for many years in the district, and now they are the most supportive instructional coaches I could even imagine. They will do pretty much anything for you if you ask for help. And they also, to get us set up for creating these binders, they gave us all a binder set up, so I didn't do any of this fancy stuff on the front. And then in the tabs of the binder, I know you won't be able to read them on the camera, but they have info about how the procedure works for the district. They have specific resources to help us. I will, if I can find any of this stuff that's more general, I will put links in the description field of the video if you are stuck and you need to do an evaluation. And they have tabs already for each of the domains of the Danielson Framework, which is what we're using for the evaluations. And there's also a spot for SLO student growth. So my different learning outcomes and the way my students are growing. So it makes it so easy to use this. Now in terms of my approach for how I put this binder together, I am very motivated to keep it simple. If you are coming from the main channel, Abundantly Minimal, you know that I do try to keep things simple in my life and am not going to try to do anything over the top if it's for an unnecessary reason. And so I think that approach applies here. I could go all out and come up with like 10 artifacts for each thing. I probably have a lot of artifacts already for a lot of these different parts of the domains, but the time it would take me to put that together would take much longer. And does the evaluator or administrator really want to spend 5 times as long going through my stuff? So because of that, I am going to be, again, trying to keep it simple, 1 to 3 artifacts for each part of the domain. And I'm hopeful today, kind of as I film it and as I talk through the different parts of it, I'm hopeful that I will already be able to come up with examples of these things that then I can go to school and print and don't actually have to reinvent the wheel and do a lot of extra work in assembling this. So that's my vision for today. I do feel like within teaching there are a lot of people who do take a more perfectionistic approach and try to, you know, load up on the examples and the evidence and really make it, you know, this glowing example of what they are. And I think, you know, that's great and you want to put your best foot forward. But at the same time, a more realist or minimalist approach can save everyone time and still, you know, get the job done. So that's gonna be my approach today. And then one great resource, again, that was given by our instructional coaches. This is actually just a packet. I'm not sure they found it online or where they got it, but each page breaks down the domains and gives you a list of example ideas. So I'm gonna be talking through that list, and if I can find a version online, I will link it in the description, like I said before. And I'm just making notes on this sheet of paper for what things I will be printing out when it's time to put this together. And so if you see me looking down, I'm writing, so that is what you might see. So to get started, domain number 1 is planning and preparation. I'm looking for evidence to show that I'm meeting those requirements. Standard 1A is demonstrating knowledge of content and pedagogy. So what I'm going to be using, there's 3 artifacts I'll be using. I will be using my transcript from the University of Illinois because it shows the proof of classes I took while I was there and the grades I got. I'm also going to be including a copy of the social studies standards in Illinois because I've been heavily using those this year and really orienting my curriculum to fit all of those needs and standards. And then also I have put together a chart already. This is just part of my lesson planning, and I included a chart of how the standards meet the topics that we're discussing and the specific lesson activities, ideas, etc. that we use during that unit. So that's already made up. So those are going to be my 3 artifacts for 1A. 1B here is demonstrating knowledge of the students. So I do have a student inventory I did at the very start of the year. And in that student inventory, it was a chance to help me get to know some of the students. So I'll block out names and include a couple of those. One of the suggestions is to include some examples of ways you've differentiated. So one of our professional development days, I did go through students' test results, and I started setting up different groups just to see where my students were at to kind of set up the groups. And so that would be a document that I could definitely include in the binder, showing how I recognize that there are students with different needs and grouping them in those groups for different activities. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I have the chart. I'll fill out the names, and that's something I do wish to do this semester. So that will be how I fit this standard. Moving on to 1C, setting instructional outcomes. I do have a lesson plan document where I go through and do standards, the objectives and the assessment for every single lesson. So I will include that document. That will be thorough enough. And then for 1D, it says demonstrating knowledge of resources. Taking a look at some of the examples here, I think I'm going to include basically kind of like a list of resources used for one of my units, a sample unit. And I think I'm actually going to use it for my immigration unit, because in my immigration unit that we just had, we used a variety of different things. We used they wanted us to pilot the TCI materials, and so I used resources from there. I did a jigsaw activity. I also used official government data to look at immigration numbers of people who are coming into the country and from where. So that, and we did a graphing activity with that. So I can use that source. And then we did political cartoon analysis. So those are different resources as well. We did a DBQ, which I did find online and made some edits. So I think that should be a good mix of things here that shows that I'm demonstrating knowledge of resources, because I can use the book materials, but then I can go above and beyond too. So that will be 1D, and I already have this stuff. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Next up, 1E, designing coherent instruction. They suggest here for unit plans that exhibit a variety of things. Coherence, variety of instructional activities and methods, problem-based learning, student choice, higher order thinking activities. All right, so for 1E, I am going to do a unit plan. So I am going to use my unit on the industrial age. And we did a variety of things here that kind of, again, fit the sample here. So in this unit plan, I did include student choice because there's a lot of student choice. There was an invention project that the kids got student choice, so they could choose to either put together a Google slideshow about how an invention has changed over time. They could write a script to a commercial about a certain product and talk about the significance of it. They could do an illustrated kind of before and after cartoon about how certain inventions affected life. Or they could create a baseball card about an inventor of their heritage. So whatever the student's ethnic background was, they could choose an inventor from that same background and talk about what they did. So that could be throughout history. So that was a student choice thing because they could choose which of those 4 projects they wanted to do. And then for problem-based learning, we did these budget projects. I do actually have the project on Teachers Pay Teachers, so I'll link it below if you're curious about it. But it was one of my favorite lessons we've done all year. And in terms of like problem-based, the students had to set an entire monthly budget for them. They chose a job from a list and they had to focus on taxes. If they had student loan payments, they had to find a place to live, calculate their monthly expenses, think about transportation, other fun stuff they wanted to add. It was a really great project and I think it was very helpful for them. So that would be my project-based learning, the budget project. And then it says here for a variety of instructional activities and methods. That's, I guess, the thing when you're kind of looking back, it's maybe tough to remember some of this stuff. But I know that when I go back through the lesson plans on those things that we did, I'm sure there was a variety of things in terms of how it was taught, since obviously some of these things here that I just described are more student-centered. I do believe there was some sort of teacher-centered part that I usually have a little bit of each unit, so I will be showcasing that as well. Next up, 1F is designing student assessments. So it's looking for a variety of formative and summative assessments connected to classroom instructions and outcomes, rubrics used to evaluate student work, and examples of student assessments with teacher comments. So for this, one of my, I guess, student growth sample that I'm using that I get to choose is with DBQs, since writing is a big priority to me, even though I'm kind of slow at grading it. But regardless, I have a rubric for that, so I'm going to include that rubric for the DBQs. But also I have copies of rubrics that I've done and written comments on given to students that I can include as well, a couple sample ones from this most recent DBQ, which was from the immigration unit. And I think that should be enough. I could do more, but again, I'm trying to keep this minimalist. All right, we are done with domain number 1. We are 1/4 of the way done. Although I think it's one of the more involved units planning up front. All right, domain number 2, this is the classroom environment. 2A, create an environment of respect and rapport. So for this one, this is somewhat things that are observed during classroom observation, but what I'm going to include is there was a sheet I put together when I was doing that student of the day thing. And so that's a way to show that I was taking the time to kind of celebrate individual students. I don't have any of their notes anymore. I write them a little thank you note, but I'll do that sheet there. And then also I do a question of the day thing now. And so I do type those up after I'm done with them. I've got like just a Google Doc that I keep running and periodically type questions on there that I've done. So I can print that out as well, just to show, hey, I'm getting to know the students this way. I guess actually, I could include, I also have received some really kind notes from students, so I could copy a few of those, because I keep them in one of my desk drawers. If I'm having a rough day, then I can refer back to them and it makes me feel very happy. So yeah, I will include that. That's 2A. Next up, 2B, this is establishing a culture for learning. So with this is also one that's more so to be observed during classroom observation, but showing that students are actively engaged and care about what they are doing. Teacher encourages high-level thinking and has high expectations. Classroom displays of student work. Classroom has visual aids that enhance the learning process. So, I personally have not done a great job yet doing a display of student work, but what I will do, this is actually, this has been a goal. I have, and I don't know if you guys can relate, I have some boards I put together at the start of the year that are serving really no purpose because it's not something we refer back to. I haven't changed them since the start of the year. So this is a goal for me to deal with. Adjust bulletin boards, but then once I do, I'll take a picture of it and include that. I'm gonna put a little star by this one because it's not ready yet. I have to get that together. So that's my focus for that part. And then I do have some visual aids. I would ideally have more, but it's focusing on quality over quantity. Next up, 2C. that's managing classroom procedures. Classroom rules are posted and students are aware and follow them. I do have my classroom rules posted, so I'll take a picture. Teacher makes effective use of class time. Again, that's something also that's more so observed. Small groups work efficiently. Clear plan for non-instructional tasks. So with that one, thinking about the different systems that are in place, and I do have a typed out document that we went over at the very start of the year with procedures, so I'll include a procedure document. All right, next up 2D, managing student behavior, logs of parent contacts. One of my goals this year is to do more with parent contacts, so I've already been keeping track of that, but I have to like copy that and put it in here because I am using that paper-based. And then 2E, this is organizing physical space. So classrooms are organized, ongoing project. I guess I could take a picture and show that it's when it's clean, but no, I think that'll just be something they take a look at, you know, during class. But I know there's been some past videos on this channel where I talk about what I'm doing to keep the classroom organized. But I'll do a picture of organization system. Looks like we're gonna do a lot of pictures for domain number 2. Perfect, we are moving on. Domain number 3, we're halfway done here. This one is instruction. All right, so domain 3A is on communicating with students. So some artifacts they suggest here: a sampling of assignments that clearly show what you expect from students. Communication is clear and effective. I'm just gonna go back to my DBQ example. I was highly thorough in terms of materials I put together for this recent one. I didn't want there to be any confusion, and just to limit the questions I received even, since I was gone one of their work days. So I was like really thorough. So DBQ requirements. And then it says electronic communications with students, like emails and stuff. So I could print out some sample emails that I sent to students. And then it talks about class website being updated regularly, so I could, I suppose, print out a sample from Google Classroom. And the other things listed here are things that they would observe during the lesson. Moving on to 3B, using questioning and discussion techniques. So for this, we have something called the QFT that we've done. Now, I've shifted more recently to doing skill-based bell ringer activities rather than just like review bell ringer activities. So we're doing it more, and we don't do like a dedicated day to questioning techniques, but I have a handout there that I can use to show kind of what we're doing, and a slideshow as well. So that will be all I need for this. 3C, engaging students in learning. All right, so for 3C, I do think these are more things that would just be observed, but to include some basic ones about, I'll include some sample in-class activities. Maybe it will be very similar to ones I already have, and then also a sample homework assignment. And otherwise, the rest will just have to be observed in the classroom. For 3D, that's using assessments in instruction. So it says here that's very similar to domain 1F, but I can use examples of feedback and rubric. So I'll just include the same things from 1F. And then for 3E, demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness. Example of student-teacher homework contracts. I don't have one of those. Examples of teacher-initiated help for particular students. Okay, well, I did make some flipped classroom videos earlier this year, so I can include links to flipped classroom videos. Those are Spanish, but that should be fine. I haven't really done those recently, but at the start of the year, some of the bigger concepts I did. Yeah, because some of these here, teacher seizes on a teachable moment. You never know, those teachable moments happen at random times. Sometimes they don't happen. All right, and I'm moving to domain 4, so we are almost done here. This is professional responsibilities, and I'm almost out of this sheet of paper, so I'm gonna have to go to a second sheet here in a moment. So 4A is reflecting on teaching. lesson plans, assignments, unit plans from multiple years that show change, growth, or adaptation. I guess for some of the things, I can show a before and after of items. Genuinely, I think the easiest example for me would be to take something I did last year, even though it was different students and it was different, and show how I've improved it for this year. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to actually do a risk packet, like the game Risk. We're going to be playing that not this week, but the next week. Not the same exact game, but similar, to talk about world power and imperialism. And the packet was okay enough to get through the lesson with my students last year, and it was one of the favorites. But I want to make it a lot better, especially since I'm doing it 4 times rather than just once. So risk packet, I have the before packet at school, and then the after will be what I'm actually using with kids this year, and I do hope to put it on TPT as well eventually. So that one's not quite ready yet, so I'm going to put a star by it, but that's what I will do because that's a really tangible example. Like, I wasn't thrilled with how it turned out. It was good enough, but it definitely needs to have some more thought put into it. But it's just, you know what it happens when you're running low on time and you have to get a lesson together. It was still a great lesson, but things that definitely can be improved about it. 4B, this is maintaining accurate records. Gradebook maintained, class website maintained, classroom inventory, student assessment data organized. So student assessment data, I'll have to put that together for my student growth anyway, so I will use that. No need to reinvent the wheel. I'm getting into a notebook now because I need another sheet of paper. Next up, we have 4C. This is communicating with families. So for this, I'll include my parent log again. Perfect. 4D, participating in a professional community. So it's some of the things it talks about here. List of all committees on which the teacher serves. I don't really have any of those right now. A list of all extracurricular activities. I haven't really done much of that either at this school yet. A list of all volunteer work and paid work within the school. Okay, I have worked in the school at some other things. I guess I'd put a list together of that. A list of all presentations made. A list of all workshops and meetings attended. All right, so I had to think about 4D a little bit longer, but as far as participating in a professional community, it took me a moment to realize it, but I have done a lot with our district's Twitter chats, like the education chats we do on Twitter, and so I will print out like my Twitter page to show my participation in these Twitter ed chats, and like I led one last semester and I'll be leading one more. So that one, even though the idea wasn't on this list here, I realized, yes, that is a way how I engage with other staff in the building and the district and beyond. And then also I will just type out a list of my after school tutoring days because I help out typically, 6 to 10 days per semester. And then also I do have, even though I don't have like an official form from it, I'll include information about my comparative timelines that I've put together because our social studies department meeting that we had at the middle school, I kind of took a leadership role talking about that and dealing with some of the problems we had in the district, or at least in the school. People were upset that they were struggling to cover the information. I presented the idea, they loved it, and I do have to present it still at our official district social studies department meeting, which has people from all of the schools, and present that solution. But the curriculum director has already heard the idea and informally acknowledged that it was what she'd like to do going forward. But yeah, so I'm going to do those 3 for 4D. For 4E, this is also related to Domain 1A. With this one, it's example of local professional development communities. I think this would also be with the Twitter ed chats that we've done. And I think I could also include a list of my master's class options there. And then finally, last one, guys, 4F, showing professionalism. In this way, it's not really something that I can document just because it's like be on time, dress appropriately, be positive, help students, follow the teacher handbook and board policy, which I do, all of that. So for 4F, I think that to show professionalism, even though this one's a tough one to document, I'll include my syllabus because I haven't already included that, and that kind of shows that my teacher policies do match up with the district policies, so there's some overlap there. And then I think I'll include an email or two of mine to show professionalism, that whether I'm responding to other staff members or yeah, just sending messages that are professional and educational, etc. So that should be good enough. Again, got 3 pages of notes here. This is my printing list that I will take care of when I get back to school. But I'm very excited. That was just going over these different parts. And of course, I will also have a section where I put my student growth data in, but we're still working on that. So that being said, I hope this video was helpful. I know it was for me because it forced me to sit down and go through all of these different domains and the different guidelines, and I think I have a lot of activities here to choose from. But before we go, I'm curious, have you had to put together a binder for your evaluations? I didn't at my past school, and this is my first time doing it, but I'm curious if this is something other schools are doing, if maybe we're just one of the exceptions here. But if you like social studies or teacher-related content, you can subscribe to the channel right here and check out some of our past videos here. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.